That was the first sentence 15-year-old Maya Coleman heard after waiting nearly 2 hours in a bank lobby just trying to deposit her $10,000 scholarship check. She had entered that building full of pride. She left it full of fire. But to understand how it came to that moment, the hand on her shoulder, the suspicious stares, the soft murmurs of that girl from the staff, you have to go back to that morning. The sun rose over St. Louis, Missouri, painting the sky in soft pink and orange streaks. Maya stood outside Jefferson Trust Bank, adjusting the strap of her worn-out backpack and trying to calm the storm in her chest. Inside the backpack was a crisp envelope. Inside that envelope, a check that represented everything she had worked for. $10,000, a full academic scholarship, her ticket out. Her mother, Danielle Coleman, was the CEO of Jefferson Trust, but no one in this downtown branch knew that. And Maya had insisted on coming alone. I want them to treat me like they treat every customer, she'd said that morning, standing in the kitchen, toast in one hand, determination in her eyes. Not because I'm your daughter, because I deserve it. Danielle, though reluctant, smiled with pride. Text me when you're done, she'd said, and be confident. You earned that check. So Maya stepped through the automatic glass doors at exactly 9:03 a.m., her heart pounding, her sneakers squeaking on the polished marble floor. The lobby was quiet but cold, sterile, corporate, uninviting. Suits and heels shuffled past her. No one looked twice. She liked it that way. Maya tightened her grip on the envelope and approached the line at the teller. When it was finally her turn, a young man in his early 20s greeted her with a mechanical smile. Good morning, how can I help you today? I'd like to deposit a check, Maya said, placing the envelope gently on the counter. The man, whose name tag read Kyle, opened it and blinked. This is a lot of money, he muttered, raising an eyebrow. 10,000? Yes, Maya replied, straightening her shoulders. It's a scholarship. I have the documents, if you want to see them. She pulled out a thin folder with her name, the Scholarship Foundation's name, and the award letter. Kyle hesitated. Then he nodded, forced a smile, and said, One moment, I just need to speak with my manager. She waited by the side, eyes scanning the lobby. A man in a navy suit walked in, greeted by two employees with wide grins. An elderly woman was escorted directly to an office. People moved efficiently, professionally, but no one came back to Maya. After nearly 15 minutes, a woman appeared. Blonde, maybe late 40s, tight bun, expensive heels, a scowl for a face. Her name tag said, L. Whitman, branch manager. She didn't smile. She didn't say hello. She didn't even acknowledge Maya's presence at first. She just picked up the envelope, examined the check, and stared at Maya like she was something she didn't order on the menu. Is this really your check? She asked. Maya blinked. Yes, I told the teller it's a scholarship. Are you sure this isn't someone else's? I'm sure. And where did you get this scholarship? The National Scholars Program. I have everything right here. I'll need to verify this with corporate, Whitman interrupted. Wait over there. She pointed to a cold-looking leather bench near the restrooms. No explanation, no time estimate. Maya walked slowly to the seat. Her palms were damp, her throat dry. Minutes turned to hours. People came and went, smiled, laughed. Maya sat. No one spoke to her again. Her phone buzzed with a message from her mother. How'd it go? Maya didn't respond. She didn't want to worry her. She wanted to handle it like anyone else would. At 11:27 a.m., something changed. A uniformed security guard walked across the lobby and stopped in front of her. Miss Coleman? Yes? Please stay seated. The police have been contacted. Wait, what? Why? Bank policy for suspicious deposits over a certain amount, he said without meeting her eyes. I gave them everything they needed. I have ID, I have documentation, I'm just doing my job. The world tilted. The people in the lobby paused, watched, whispered. Maya felt her face flush, her throat tightened. She wasn't a criminal. She was a child. And still, she sat there under silent accusation while someone somewhere called the police on her for trying to deposit a check with her own name on it. The police arrived at 11:51 a.m., 2 officers, one older, one young. They didn't cuff her, but they asked her to step into a back room. Her backpack was searched, her ID double-checked, her documents re-examined. Finally, the younger officer leaned forward. Why didn't you have a parent with you? Because I'm 15, Maya said quietly, not 5. And this check, you're sure it's yours? I told your bank manager. I showed the paperwork. The officer stepped outside the room. Through the sliver in the blinds, Maya saw them speaking with Miss Whitman. Saw her nod. Saw her gesture to Maya. Saw them frown. 10 more minutes passed before one officer returned. All right, everything checks out, he said. But next time, maybe let someone else make the deposit for you, okay? Maya didn't respond, because the shame wasn't hers. When she was finally allowed to leave the room, the lobby had emptied. Ms. Whitman was nowhere in sight. No apology, no sorry for the mistake. Just silence. As Maya stepped into the midday sun, her phone buzzed again. It was her mother. Everything okay? Maya looked down the street, then up at the bank's logo, carved in stone above the entry. Her mother's name, her mother's empire, and they had called the cops on her. She typed quickly, "Not really. I'll explain when I get home. I think you'll want to hear this." But what Maya hadn't told anyone yet was that during those hours in that bank, she had seen and heard something else. Something that wasn't just about her. Something bigger. The sun had shifted its position by the time Maya Coleman stepped back into the main lobby of Jefferson Trust Bank. She could feel it through the large tinted windows, the light hitting differently now, warmer, later. But inside, it was still cold. Too cold. The stares hadn't stopped. The whispers hadn't either. Even after the police officers had left, even after they'd confirmed the check was real and she wasn't some teenage scammer, Maya still felt like a ghost drifting through a place that had already made up its mind about her. She walked slowly back to the waiting bench where she'd sat for hours. Her backpack now felt heavier, her shoulders stiffer, her stomach growled quietly. She hadn't eaten since breakfast. Across the lobby, a suited man had just stepped in. White, middle-aged, confident. He didn't wait in line. He was immediately greeted by a smiling teller who waved him over. "Mr. Hayden, great to see you again. What can we help with today?" Maya watched him hand over some paperwork. Less than 2 minutes later, he was walking back out. A leather portfolio in one hand, car keys in the other. No waiting, no manager, no backroom questioning, just a smile and service. Maya looked down at her folder again, still clutched in her lap, still full of evidence. Scholarship letter, ID, award documents. She had done everything right. Why didn't that matter? She glanced at her phone. A new message from her mom. "Hey baby, you still there? Want me to come pick you up?" Maya stared at the text for a long moment. Then she typed back, "No, not yet. I want to see what happens next." She hit send and slowly looked back toward the front desk. The young teller, Kyle, glanced at her, then quickly looked away. The manager, Whitman, still hadn't reappeared. Instead, a second older woman had taken over her station, directing traffic like a conductor. Maya stood. She walked back to the front. Kyle saw her approach and straightened awkwardly. Yes?" he asked. "Has anything been done with my deposit yet? It's been over 2 hours." He swallowed. I think it's still pending manager approval." She left. "You called the police on me. You had them search my bag. And now I'm just, what? Supposed to go home and wait?" He shifted. "It's policy for larger checks." "Not for everyone," Maya said quietly. "I've been sitting here watching you clear transactions without question." He opened his mouth, then closed it. Maya turned and walked away. But she didn't go back to the bench. She went to the far corner of the bank where a small cluster of chairs surrounded a low coffee table with outdated magazines. She pulled out her spiral notebook and pen and began to write. It started with the date, then the time, then each moment. 9:03 a.m. arrived at bank. 9:17 a.m. handed in scholarship check. 9:30 a.m. questioned by manager. 45 a.m. told to wait. 11:27 a.m. security said police had been called. 11:51 a.m. police arrived, checked ID documents. 12:10 p.m. cleared, but no apology or action. She paused. Her handwriting was small and neat. Then she added, saw white customers being helped within minutes, all treated respectfully. No backroom checks, no police, no delays. She drew a line under it. Then she wrote, I wasn't treated like a customer. I was treated like a threat. Her throat tightened, but she didn't let herself cry. Not now. Not here. She wasn't going to let them see her break. Instead, she kept writing. Page after page, she described the expressions, the silence, the discomfort, the way no one made eye contact, the fact that she had watched 5 different customers, none of them black, get helped immediately while she was asked to sit quietly and wait. By the time she paused, she had filled nearly 4 pages. She leaned back in the chair, staring at the ceiling. She wasn't invisible, but they wanted her to be. They wanted her to walk away. Forget it ever happened. But Maya had a voice, and a pen, and something more important than anger: clarity. She looked around the lobby again. It was almost 1 p.m. now. The sun outside was blindingly bright. A few customers trickled in. A woman in a red dress, a man with a briefcase, a teenager with a skateboard and headphones. Then something unexpected happened. A man stepped through the doors, tall, black, well-dressed, in a charcoal suit and polished shoes. He carried himself with quiet authority. Every employee noticed. The new floor manager stood a little straighter. Kyle seemed nervous. The man walked slowly, surveying the lobby. Then he approached the front desk. "Good afternoon," he said calmly. "I'm looking for a young woman, 15 years old, name's Maya Coleman." Maya froze. How did he know her name? Kyle pointed toward the waiting area. "She's over there." The man turned. Their eyes met. He walked over, smiled gently, and said, "Miss Coleman? Your mother sent me." Maya blinked. "She did?" He nodded. "She was worried you hadn't responded. I work on her executive security team. My name's Victor." Maya looked down. 4 pages of notes stared back at her. She slowly stood. "I'm okay." Victor's eyes softened. "I believe you. But she asked that I stay with you until this is resolved." He looked toward the front desk. "Let's go ask again, together." They walked back to Kyle's counter. Victor's presence changed everything. Kyle was stammering now. Yes, well, the deposit is still pending, but I can escalate." "Do that," Victor said. "And I'd recommend making a formal note of how long she's been waiting." Kyle nodded furiously and disappeared into the back. Victor looked at Maya. "You kept notes?" She showed him the notebook. He skimmed the pages and gave a low whistle. "Your mother's going to want this." Maya hesitated. "I didn't want to call her. I didn't want her to fix it. I wanted to be treated like everyone else." Victor nodded slowly. "That's what makes you dangerous to people like them." She tilted her head. "What do you mean?" "People who can't see past your skin or your age or your silence. They're scared of girls like you. Girls who know their worth and write it down." Maya looked at her notebook, then back at the teller window. And in that moment, something shifted. She wasn't just waiting anymore. She was watching, documenting, building something bigger than a complaint. She was building a record, a testimony. And very soon, the world was going to read every word. Victor stayed by Maya's side. After Kyle disappeared into the back to escalate her check, the two sat together in the waiting area. Victor was calm, observant, his gaze sweeping the bank, his posture relaxed but alert. Maya continued scribbling in her notebook, now adding details not just about her treatment but also the environment around her. The subtle shifts in energy when different customers walked in, the way certain tellers straightened up when well-dressed clients entered, the way others looked away when black or brown customers approached. The double standards were everywhere. She saw them now with laser precision. She documented them like evidence at a crime scene. Victor occasionally asked quiet questions. "How many other people have been helped since you got here?" 12, Maya said without looking up. "I counted. I noted timestamps." Victor gave a low, approving whistle. "You'd make a hell of an investigator," Maya smiled faintly. "I just want them to see what I see." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Victor's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned slightly. "I'll be right back. I need to take this. Stay here, all right?" Maya nodded. Victor stood and walked a short distance away, taking the call in hushed tones. That's when it happened. 2 people entered from a side hallway near the restricted access offices, an older white woman and a man in a tailored navy suit. The woman's face was familiar. Whitman. The man was someone Maya hadn't seen before. Graying at the temples, expensive watch, the kind of confident smile that usually came with power. They didn't see her. They entered a small conference room just behind a half-open door on the right side of the bank. Maya couldn't hear them at first, but as the door drifted slightly open with the airflow, their voices carried. She froze. Her heart began to pound. She was far enough away to remain unnoticed, but close enough to catch fragments of their conversation. "She's still here?" the man asked. "I thought you were going to handle it quietly." "She's just some kid," Whitman hissed. "I figured the cops would scare her off." They didn't. "She doesn't know anything," Whitman snapped. And even if she does, who's going to believe a teenager over me? There was a pause. Then the man said, "You told me this branch would be clean by next quarter, that the numbers would be scrubbed." "They will be," Whitman said sharply. "But if her mother finds out anything about this merger..." Maya's breath caught. Her mother? Merger? She leaned forward slightly, keeping her body hidden behind a fake potted plant. "Look," the man said, "I'm not backing out of this Thorn deal just because a girl wandered into the wrong branch. But if this blows up..." "It won't," Whitman interrupted. "She doesn't know who she's sitting next to. Beckham, we've got maybe 2 weeks until the acquisition paperwork hits the board. If Danielle Coleman finds out we've been feeding data to Thorn Financial, it's over." Maya nearly dropped her notebook. Beckham. Thorn Financial. Her mom. They weren't just discriminating against her. They were sabotaging the company. From the inside, Maya's fingers trembled as she flipped to a clean page and began jotting everything down. 1:24 p.m. Overheard conversation between Whitman and unknown male, later referred to as Beckham. Mention of feeding data to Thorn Financial. Merger discussed. Secret timeline. 2 weeks. Concern about Maya's presence and what she knows. Acknowledged she's Danielle Coleman's daughter, but dismissed risk. She pressed her pen so hard that the ink smudged. They were betraying her mother, the CEO, and they were trying to bury her, Maya, as just a scared, angry teenager. But she wasn't scared. Not anymore. A few minutes later, Whitman and Beckham exited the room. Maya ducked her head low, pretending to flip through her notebook. They didn't notice her, didn't even look in her direction. Victor returned moments later and raised an eyebrow. "Everything okay?" Maya looked up at him, eyes blazing. "We have a bigger problem." She handed him the notebook. He read quickly, his jaw tightening. "We need to get your mother. Now." Maya nodded. She grabbed her bag, hugged the notebook to her chest, and for the first time since she entered the bank that morning, she led the way. Victor and Maya didn't waste time. As soon as they were outside the bank, Victor made the call. "Danielle, you need to get down here, now." Maya stood next to him, watching his jaw clench tighter with every word. She could hear her mother's voice faintly on the other end, crisp, measured, but laced with concern. Within seconds, the tone shifted. By the time they stepped back into the bank, Danielle Coleman was already on her way. 20 minutes later, she arrived. Not in a frenzy, not in outrage, but with purpose. Danielle Coleman didn't storm the building. She strode through it, every step echoing against the marble floor like a countdown. The CEO of Jefferson Trust Bank was tall, poised, and impeccably dressed in a navy pantsuit that radiated control. Heads turned as she entered. No one needed an introduction. Her presence introduced itself. She didn't go to the front desk. She didn't wait in line. She walked straight toward Maya. "Maya," she breathed, pulling her daughter into a tight embrace. "Are you all right?" Maya, for the first time that day, let her defenses down. She held on, just for a second. Then she pulled back and held out the notebook. "You need to see this." Danielle took the book. Her eyes moved quickly, her face shifting from confusion to fury to ice-cold clarity. Victor stepped in. "We heard it ourselves. Whitman's been leaking data to Thorn. They've been planning a hostile acquisition." Danielle closed the notebook. She looked at Victor. "Secure the building. No one in or out." Victor nodded and made the call. Then Danielle turned to Maya, voice low. "Stay with Victor. I'm going to talk to Ms. Whitman." Claudia Whitman didn't look up when Danielle entered her office. She was sitting behind her desk typing, a coffee mug balanced precariously on a stack of manila folders. When she finally did raise her head, her face went pale. "Miss Coleman," she stammered, rising to her feet. "I wasn't expecting you today." "Clearly." Danielle shut the door behind her with a quiet but definitive click. "We need to talk." "Of course. Please have a seat." "No." Whitman sat back down slowly, swallowing hard. Danielle opened Maya's notebook and placed it on the desk. "My daughter, your customer, came in here to deposit a scholarship check. Instead, she was interrogated, isolated, and ultimately had the police called on her." Whitman opened her mouth. Danielle held up a hand. "And then, while you assumed no one was listening, you discussed confidential merger information with a man from Thorn Financial." Claudia's lips trembled. She overheard? She documented, in detail. There was a knock at the door. Victor entered, followed by 2 men in dark suits, members of the executive board. Danielle gestured to the chair beside Claudia's desk. Sit, we're doing this now. The conference room was transformed. Maya sat beside Victor, watching through the glass as her mother, Claudia, and the board engaged in a quiet storm. At first, Claudia tried to deflect. It was a misunderstanding. The check amount was unusually high. Others with higher checks were helped in minutes, Danielle cut in. She refused to provide proper verification. She brought full documentation. She was profiled. Claudia's voice shook. I didn't know who she was. Danielle leaned forward, eyes blazing. And that's the problem. You shouldn't have to know someone's last name to treat them with respect. The board members exchanged looks. One of them, Mr. Fulton, spoke. Is there truth to the information about Thorne Financial? Danielle pushed the notebook forward. Read it, then check the security tapes. Minutes passed. The board read. One of them took out his phone and began calling the security team. Claudia stared at her hands. You betrayed this bank, Danielle said quietly. You abused your authority. You humiliated a child, and you handed confidential data to our competitor. Claudia looked up, voice barely a whisper. I thought no one would ever know. Danielle stood. Well, now everyone will. She turned to the board. I want her removed. Today. Mr. Fulton nodded. Effective immediately. 2 uniformed security officers entered the room. Claudia's face went blank. She rose, her movements mechanical, and allowed herself to be escorted from the room. As she passed Maya in the hall, their eyes met. There was no hatred, only realization. Claudia had underestimated her. A teenager with a pen had brought down a branch manager with power. That night, Danielle and Maya sat at the dinner table, the notebook between them. You didn't just stand up for yourself, Danielle said. You stood up for this bank. Maya looked down. I didn't want to be respected because of you. I wanted to be respected because I deserved it. Danielle reached across the table, took her hand. You were. And from now on, we're going to make sure everyone else is too. Maya smiled, just a little. The fight wasn't over, but she wasn't fighting alone anymore. And for the first time all day, she felt powerful. The next morning, the story broke. A leaked video clip, security footage from Jefferson Trust Bank, was posted anonymously on social media. It showed a young black girl sitting alone in a waiting area while employees walked by her, avoiding eye contact. It showed a manager whispering to security. It showed police arriving. The caption read, "This is how they treat the CEO's daughter. Imagine how they treat the rest of us." By noon, it had over 2 million views. News outlets picked it up. Hashtags trended. Justice for Maya, banking while black, respect is not optional. By that evening, Maya Coleman had called an emergency press conference. She didn't hide the truth. She stood in front of a row of cameras and microphones and told the story exactly as it had happened. No spin, no corporate language, just truth. Standing beside her, Maya kept her head high. I didn't speak out because I'm the daughter of a CEO, she said. I spoke out because this happens to people who don't have anyone in power to protect them. And it shouldn't happen to anyone, ever. Her words hit like thunder. Over the following weeks, change came swiftly. Danielle implemented sweeping reforms across Jefferson Trust Bank. Mandatory anti-bias training for every employee. Anonymous reporting systems for client discrimination. A new internal division focused solely on customer equity and ethics. But the biggest change came with a name. The Maya Initiative. A scholarship and mentorship program for young people of color who faced barriers in the financial world. It provided financial literacy training, internship pipelines, and direct access to capital for student-led projects. At the launch event, Maya stood on stage in a white blouse and navy blazer, her signature notebook in hand. She held it up to the crowd of reporters and students. This notebook started as a place to write my homework. Then it became a place to document what was happening to me. Today, it holds the foundation for real change. Applause thundered through the hall. Danielle stood off to the side, tears in her eyes. Not from sadness, but pride. Months passed. The bank's culture began to shift. Branch managers who once overlooked bias now actively corrected it. Customers who once stayed silent began speaking up. Maya's story had become more than a viral moment. It had become a movement. Maya herself was invited to speak at schools, nonprofit organizations, and even universities. Her TED Talk, titled "Write It Down Anyway," garnered over 8 million views in 2 weeks. but through it all, she never let the fame go to her head. She kept the notebook. She kept writing. Because she knew change didn't come from one big moment. It came from the decision to not look away. Every single day. One afternoon, Maya returned to the same branch where it all began. The interior had changed. The cold benches were gone, warm lighting, local art on the walls. A new manager, a black woman named Erica, stood behind the counter with a genuine smile. "Miss Coleman," she greeted, "it's good to see you." "I'm just Maya," she said with a grin. She handed over a new scholarship check, this one not for herself, but for donation. "For the next kid who walks in here with a dream," she said. Erica nodded, eyes glistening. "We'll take good care of them." As Maya stepped outside, the wind picked up slightly, flipping the edge of her blazer. She reached into her bag, pulled out the notebook, and opened to a fresh page. She wrote one sentence. "This isn't the end, it's the beginning." Because she had walked in as a teenage girl with a pen, and she had walked out as a force of change.